autistic is a massive part of who I am. It affects a large amount of my life. Sometimes it can be a gift, sometimes it can be a hindrance, but it's a huge part of being me, and I don't think I'd have it any other way.
I've recently found out that I am autistic, which has been fun.
I identify as an individual with ADHD and autism.
I feel like when I realised it, everything kind of made sense. Like, it's things like my gran, like I go to my gran's house after school and she'd be like, oh, what do you want for dinner? And I'd say the same thing, and it was kind of, don't you get bored? Like, aren't you bored of that? And I'm like, no. And like, obviously was a safe food for me. So like, it just makes sense.
To me, it's a jar of bees. Almost commonly I say a bar of bees. It's such chaos, but some days it can be this beautiful thing, like when the bees end up resulting in honey. It's chaos with a good end.
Some of the characteristics I've experienced through my autism is, I think, very visually, I think in pictures. And growing up, I never really thought that was not normal. That was just, someone would say shoes, and I think of the shoes I'm wearing now, the shoes you guys are wearing, the shoes that my mum wears, the shoes that my sister wears, all of the shoes I've ever had, the shoes of my teachers, the shoes of my babysitters when I was a kid. All of this stuff just all comes into my head. And that was always just a way I thought, and I never realised that that wasn't normal, and so that's a massive part of the way I work and the way I think.
I think for me, I'm hypersensitive to a lot of stuff, like light and sound. Like, I was in the supermarket the other day and I was like, I'm having to wear my sunglasses and I'm going to look like I'm blind, but I'm not. It's too bright. Everything is too bright and everything is too loud. And it's so annoying. Like, why can't the world be dimmer?
Yeah, honestly. For me, it's not really being able to understand how to react properly, how to show the proper amount of sympathy to somebody, or to respond to someone's joke properly. Sarcasm is always lost on me. And I live with one of the most sarcastic people I've ever met. In it's so confusing. Like, there is so many things when it comes to autism that it's like, where does it begin, and then where do you begin?
Yeah, because to me, like, also there's a massive sense of routine there.
Yeah.
Like, I know, for example, like my house, we began living in this house with a routine of we clean on Sundays, and because everyone's busy, people don't keep up to that, and I'm like, this is the thing that I know we have to do. Like, bins, I will remember bins, people won't, and I'm like, it's a Monday night, like, we need to do this because this is what we do on a Monday night.
I have lists of my daily routine I have to do each evening. I have to know exactly, the day before I have to know what clothes I'm going to wear, what my breakfast is, what my lunch is, what my dinner is. I have to have everything cut into 30-minute intervals.
When I was awfully young, like from the age of 4, I actually asked my mum prior to this, like, what actually made her realise that I kind of needed to go see the child specialist. And she went, well, you took things extremely literally. You chased your siblings around the house with a screwdriver after watching Tom and Jerry because you didn't realise that there was actual consequences in real life.
I was diagnosed when I was 10 after a long time of my parents knowing I was a bit weird. As a kid, I always noticed things that other people didn't notice. I had really, and this is quite interesting because people stereotype autistic people as not having empathy. I had really, really strong empathy to the point where it was actually problematic. So I could sense if someone, like as a really young kid, you know, I listened to a song in my mum's car, and for 3 hours I was crying because I had picked up on the emotion in this woman's lyrics, and I was like distraught for hours because I had just so heavily invested in this thing at something like 3, which was mental.
Yeah.
And so I was diagnosed at 10.
I remember being, I think I was like 5. I was a young child, and there was like a thing on the news, which was like these cows had died, and I remember throwing up all over my grand's bed because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a suspicion. My parents have used the word autistic back and forth at each other slightly as insults.
Nice.
I believe my dad's neurotypical. He seems the most neurotypical one of our entire family. My mum definitely is somewhere on the neurodivergent scale. So that kind of got me thinking about it. I have a lot of autistic friends. So about 6 months ago now, I took a RADS test. Went, oh, that's quite high. Then took a CAT-Q test. And I went, oh, that's higher than the average autistic person. I should probably talk to my therapist about this. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
How did you find that then? Because that's quite recent. How did you find that kind of almost like coming out, I suppose?
It was certainly a challenge. Like, I feel like I don't believe that anyone believes me when I say it.
Damn.
Like, it took me until I think last time I remember messaging my partner, and I was like, my therapist actually believes me this time.
You know, I get a lot of neurotypical people, you know, saying, well, does it matter? Well, yeah, it does, because actually it affects a huge part of my life, and it's something that I sometimes need a lot of help with, and I also don't want to be babied. It's a massive. My perception of things is totally different to someone else's, and that can be difficult, and sometimes I need help with it.
I've been friends with some people for a very long time, and I wasn't given the social manual you guys were. I wasn't given the capability of elongated eye contact and social cues.
These rules, these very bold rules that we're kind of pushed out of quite often. Often when I say autistic to someone, they think of your typical Sheldon Cooper, Sherlock Holmes, you know, these people who are rude and abrasive, and, you know, they have absolutely no social skills. They are uncomfortable around the opposite sex. Some of them don't wash, and the media sort of icon of that, the media image of an autistic person is usually a man or a kid. It's
the kind of thing of you know everything, and it's glamorizing that, but it's also not showing things like overstimulation and stuff. Like, I'm not good at maths, I don't like trains, I'm not a 3-year-old boy.
There's also more with the negative stereotypes of, like, every time you have an autistic person on the screen, if it does have an overload, it's kicking, screaming, and it's throwing a tantrum. And it's like, yes, when you have younger individuals who don't quite know how to deal with overloads, you get that. But that's not the only kind of overload that you see. Like, I don't kick and scream when I'm having an overload. I usually just zone out and go mute.
Yeah. I think non-verbalness is a massive thing that no one talks about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the you don't look autistic enough, or are you really autistic?
What the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
Do I have to wear a t-shirt that says autistic person here? You know, what do I have to do? Do I have to wear a bow tie and some glasses? Do I have to look like your media personality? Come on, like, what the hell does you don't look autistic? I'll just get it tattooed here then. I would if I had the money.
Masking it's basically pulling an Oscar-winning performance to act neurotypical constantly. It's sitting up straight, not doing your leg bounces or anything. It's going, I am responding to you socially acceptably.
Oh no, that's just been my entire life.
I try my best to mask in social situations if I'm on a night out, if I'm at a party, if I'm with certain friends. In lessons, I'm having to mask all the time, which can be really difficult because I'm a theatre student, and a lot of that is working with your emotions. I do experience quite a lot of burnout in terms of, masking burnout, where I have kept this up for so long and I need to go home and recharge.
It's things like not reacting to music in the way that I want to, as a small thing. Like, I'm very in tune with rhythm, I'm very in tune with, like, drums. I think there's, like, a TikTok thing which is, like, the Carol of the Bells, and it's like, this is how I mask and this is how I actually want to, like, react to it. And it's things like doing, like, little fun things with your hands and, like, pretending you're drumming and things like that, because it's just it feels right when you do that.
I often have to not get too loud or too excited about things. When someone mentions Doctor Who to me, I'm going to start talking to them about Doctor Who for 3 hours, and I have to not do that, and I have to not get too excited about things, which sucks.
The special interest I've had since I was a kid was the Six Wives of Henry VIII and like Tudor courts, and no one talks about that in everyday life. Like, it's not like Doctor Who where people watch it on a Sunday. Like, you have to force conversation for it to happen. Which is why I find like I can actually talk. Like, the only time where I feel like I'm actually connecting with people is when I talk about sex, because it's the thing that the majority of people experience, and they enjoy talking about it. And I know some very juicy things about some certain people because of it. As a non-diagnosed person who has done things like the tests and has conversations with professionals going, yeah, we reckon it's something along the lines of this. Like, I don't necessarily feel the need to diagnose or get a diagnosis, because I know it's time, effort and money, and also, even though you have a piece of paper that says it's right, or your suspicions are right, it's also have a complete detriment to the workplace, possibly, because autistic is such a big label that people don't understand. But at the same time, having that piece of paper is great. So
it's definitely catch-22. I think on one hand, I did struggle with people who, for a while when I was younger, I did struggle with the idea of people self-diagnosing at first, because I knew that my mum had fought really, really, really hard to get me that diagnosis. However, the reason she had to fight for that diagnosis is that because the diagnoses can be missed, they take ages to actually happen in the first place. And they're also, in all honesty, outdated. The actual system of diagnosing someone and the principles and the personality that they look for is, not only is it massively outdated, but also it excludes women as well, and how autism appears in women, it's totally different.
I went to 2 schools with learning difficulties programs. The first one, I had this tutor, and there was some really good TAs that were very much like, okay, it's okay, just go do this, or like go into your corner and hide. And it's like they didn't encourage me to be normal, but it was the other kids that were the nightmare for me. It was the fact that they never even tried to understand that I was a bit different. It was very much, I did get bullied, but I didn't quite understand I was bullied until I was much older, because I didn't understand that the words that they were saying were actually mean, or that they weren't jokes. And I was an aggressive kid, but
high five.
that's something that comes along with it, but it's not being able to manage your emotions as a child is a normal thing. But as a child with a neurodivergency, you're a bomb that's gonna explode. You can't see our disability or our difference, and yet because you can't see it, it doesn't exist to them. And it's like, it very much handicaps us in many things. Yes, it can be a great thing in some ways, and it can be our greatest strength. However, it is such a handicap, and people don't quite realise how much it can affect our day-to-day lives. Like, the stereotype that, like, when you have a neurotypical partner, it pisses me off, because my partner is not my nanny. My partner is not here to look after me. I'm here to look after myself. They just try to understand me. And they try to help me, unlike society.
One thing that really interested me that you said just there was about when in school people would be nice to you as a joke to be mean, and you wouldn't get it because
that happened to me too.
That is the worst, and I want you to know that I hear you and I know exactly what that is like, because again, it's that lying with body language and knowing you're not going to pick up on it. That's ableism to a T, man. Like, that is just the worst, using, you know, a disability against you. That's so awful, and people still do it. Workplaces definitely need to take into account that neurodiverse people are going to be there. For me, when someone gives me an instruction, I will often have to write it down, or I'll need it to be repeated a number of times. It's not because I'm stupid, and it's not because I'm going to be unable to perform what they want me to do. It's just how my brain works.
If your loved one has ADHD, autism, a neurodivergency, or you suspect you might have one yourself, research. But my big piece of advice is, if you do have a loved one or you do have a friend with a neurodivergency, please research into it, be able to understand them a little bit more, because they're gonna say something which is gonna piss you off. They're gonna say something which could be quite harmful, but if you don't talk to them about that, if you don't come to them going, they probably didn't mean it like that way, you're allowed to get upset. I'm not saying you're not. But you need to corner them and go, how did you mean that? Instead of assuming that they meant that to be a dagger in your chest.
I think people shouldn't assume that someone can't do something because that matches what they've heard about autistic people from TV, media, what someone said to them, and also ask us, you know, the information can come from the horse's mouth. And I think as well, even if it's a difficult thing, you know, if you want to create obvious boundaries for an autistic person, because us autistics are difficult, niggly, we can be irritating, we can be rude when not even trying to be. However, if someone goes to if someone goes to the length of asking about boundaries and trying to help me, then we will do anything to help that person if they show that they care. Autistic people are loyal as hell, and we will, if you're going the extra mile to help us, we sure as shit are going to help you, you know?
I think for me it's, if you recently realised that you need accommodations for yourself, like things over your ears and sunglasses, or just don't be afraid to just say, no, I'm going to put my sunglasses on in the supermarket, or I'm going to put my earplugs in, or I'm going to buy some earplugs, or get some noise cancelling headphones, because it helps. Like, don't be afraid to do that, and don't be afraid to let yourself do that.
And if you see someone doing that, don't be a judgy person.
There we go.
Don't judge. Just be nice.
Let us be weird, let us stim. Let's do our thing.
Let us stim. Let us stim.